Naval Defense. Σας ευχαριστώ που είστε εδώ και με φυσική παρουσία και όσοι μας βλέπουν μέσω streaming από το YouTube. Σας καλωσορίζω λοιπόν σε ένα φόρουμ που θα κάνουμε σήμερα, τελευταία μέρα της ΔΙΦΕΑ, με θέμα την ασπίδα του Αχιλλέα. Δηλαδή αυτό το πολυσύνθετο ελληνικό πρόγραμμα που έχει ανακοινωθεί για τη δημιουργία μιας ολιστικής, όπως λέγεται, άμυνας πάνω από την ελληνική επικράτεια, προφανώς με έμφαση στον χώρο του Αιγαίου, η οποία αυτή άμυνα θα είναι το πολυεπίπεδο της, έχει μέσα μεγάλη καινοτομία, διότι προβλέπει ότι θα έχουμε άμυνα σε επίπεδο αέρα, προβλέποντας πυράβλους, βαλιστικούς και κρούς και αεροσκάφη και drones, αλλά θα μπορεί να αντιμετωπίζει και απειλές επιφανείας και απειλές βυθού. Είναι λοιπόν κάτι πολύ καινοτομικό στη διεθνή αμυντική επένδυση. Μάλιστα, αυτό θα είναι ένα από τα κεντρικά προγράμματα για την Ελλάδα στο νέο εξοπλιστικό πρόγραμμα που ανακοινώθηκε 12ετίας. Και βεβαίως είναι ένα πάρα πολύ σύνθετο σύστημα συστημάτων, γιατί απαιτεί μια φοβερή ολοκλήρωση τόσο μέσων κάθε τύπου, όπλα, ραντάρ, αισθητήρες, ηλεκτρονικά, τηλεπικοινωνίες κτλ. Με ένα σύστημα διοίκησης, το οποίο θα έχει μεγάλο αυτοματισμό, θα έχει πολύ υψηλή απόδοση, αναμένεται να έχει και πρέπει να έχει ακριβώς για να αντιμετωπίσει τόσο σύνθετες απειλές, και βεβαίως θα προσφέρει μια πολύ σοβαρή αποτροπή στην Ελλάδα, διότι η φιλοσοφία της όλης πρότασης είναι ότι σημαντικό μέρος της πολεμικής αεροπορίας της Ελλάδος και του πολεμικού ναυτικού της Ελλάδος, όχι το σύνολο προφανώς, αλλά θα μπορούν να απεμπλακούν από την υπεράσπιση, την παραδοσιακή υπεράσπιση του ελληνικού χώρου και να έχουν μια πιο επιθετική δράση. I'm going to say this again in English for our guests. So today's forum theme is about Achilles shield. Achilles shield is a new proposal made by the Greek Defense Ministry. It's going to be one of the main programs, procurement programs for our defense acquisition program for the next 12 years. Achilles shield is a multi-layered defense. It is described as a 5-pillar defense, providing managing threats from the air, including aircrafts, drones, ballistic and cruise missiles, but also covering surface threats and subsurface threats. So this is extremely complex, it's extremely ambitious. It's supposed to come together with a whole set of new systems, including launchers, sensors, command and control, new communication, of course, electronic warfare, both passive and aggressive systems. And of course, it has to integrate all the existing capacities the Greek armed forces have. So we're going to talk about it from, as you're going to see from our guests, from a European perspective, from a European point of view, because Greece has to use solutions already available in the market. Theoretically, we would like this to be European solutions and European sources, because there is this current trend, which has become a policy right now, for Europe to pick up its pace and rearm itself, and using local sources, local systems, local companies, of course, in a perspective of creating an independent, however this is possible, an independent self-defense capability. So Greece has a lot of open problems to face, defense problems, security problems to face. We all know about this. And this effort of creating Achilles shield is one, at least in my opinion, one of the most interesting things that's going to happen in the European defense environment in the next years, because exactly it's so modern, so complex, and so diverse in how it's going to face the threats. So with us today, we have 4 speakers. First, we're going to hear a small presentation and discussion about the dogmas and the complexity of such a proposal from retired admiral of the Greek Navy, Mr. Dimitris Kavoulakos. And with us are now present Mr. Georg Sorg from Deal Defense, Mr. Gerardo Gomez Naval from Hensoldt, and Mr. Alexander Momelt from RAM System, Ramses. all these groups, all these European groups have already established a presence in the Greek armed forces. They have systems, they have proposals, and they have working systems within the Greek armed forces. So I'm going to pass the speech to Mr. Kavouliakos, and we will continue from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank TC for the opportunity to speak here in a panel with such distinguished participants and in such an interesting subject. I will not waste more time. My thanks and appreciation is big, but going to the point, we spoke about the dome or Achilles shield. So conceptually, domes are static features. They are static structures. As a shield, they mostly apply to weapons, but not the shooter. And the reason for that can be either operational, meaning that you cannot reach the shooter with what the dome has, or it can be the nature of the environment, as I will briefly speak. But it has an advantage. It takes operational burden from your classic units, planes, fleet, mobile units of the army who are for the strike. So it takes a significant amount of operational burden, and they are more free to act and do their job, what they know to do best of all. Eventually, you must deal with the shooter. So it's not only the dome must have some spikes that extend further from the dome and make sure that your defenses will not be overwhelmed. So this is one main aspect. Second, geography. Speaking about Greece, we have quite a mixture. We have land interrupted by mountains. I think we are 70% mountainous. There are valleys, there are some plateaus, but mostly there are mountains. We have a big coastline. You have islands who are on the east, and between that, you have a sea body, which is not all Greek, so there are international waters. So what is theoretically yours in case of war, in crisis and in peace, you cannot exclude anybody from entering. So going back to the dome, the question is, we want to know who is where, if he is a threat, and what can we do about it. On air, this is relatively not easy, but relatively easy because planes do not stay long time on air. They pass, you know from where they start, you know where they are going, you know they will stay on air for some time. In the land, things are easier when you have land border because you know where you are looking. In islands, you have a land border near, but also you have the water. And then the water breaks in two things. There is the surface, where things are a little bit more easy, but not easy. So you must know who is where and for what, 24/7. And underwater, you have another world. This other world underwater is interrupted by land masses, islands. And what we do not see with the naked eye, there are natural islands, bodies of water that make detection and surveillance and tracking of an enemy much more difficult. So this is the setting. For the dome or the shield of Achilles of Greece, the threat is 360 degrees. We saw that, and maybe not for the northern parts, but for the islands for sure, because you do not know how things will evolve. And we have a very, very good idea of how this threat can evolve from the lessons of Ukraine. Because things have evolved drastically with Ukraine. And they managed to protect themselves and fight very often, I must say, with the back tied behind their hands tied behind their back, and sometimes backstab. But there is lessons to be learned. And since they manage, we can manage in advance. Going further from the setting, the threats are evolving. What was a menacing USV unmanned vehicle 6 months ago, now it can be dealt with, or at least it can be less devastating. So the whole architecture must be such that you are not tied down with specifications that become obsolete very, very fast, and you will have spent a huge amount of money. So it must be something changeable, scalable, and interoperable. Keyword, interoperable. Going further, it says, I must say, speaking about the sea, and I think it's the same with the air, you cannot replace a fleet, either of ships or of aircraft, with a static feature. You cannot. What can you do? What you can do is make the burden lighter. Give them the freedom they need to say that I will deal with the enemy where he is, and I will not need to worry a lot that my hometown, my family, my important infrastructure is defenseless because I am not there. So this is what the dome does. And how do you do that? You have static, fixed, semi-fixed or semi-static structures or platforms. They can be manned or unmanned, preferably unmanned, because then you risk the cost of life. These structures will be the first to go, this we all know. Everybody knows where they are, and they can be defendable, but until a point, they can be overwhelmed. So you reduce the risk for loss of life. They can carry a combination of sensors, payload, weapons, and they can be tendered to, or they can have organic unmanned vehicles for 3 dimensions. They can be supported, they should be supported for AI, because they will do the data fusion and present those who take decisions with a better picture. And there should be a possibility, not a possibility, there should be a level of autonomy, varying autonomy from a remote operation, which means there is somebody in the back who says, open, close, go there, go here, or you will have algorithms who will do this, a big part of this work for you, and you will have decisions who are of higher importance, not to tell a radar to open, a weapon to attack. So you build that up. So there is a command center that integrates everything. There must be redundancy. If you lose the command center, there must be somebody else who can do that. And in the underwater sector, things are getting a little bit more difficult because the volume of water is quite big. The space is big, and it is interrupted by thermoclines for whoever is an aficionado of the art of underwater warfare. So there you cannot say that I will suddenly look at a body of water and I will find out who is the enemy, who is mine, who is not. What you can do for the environment of Greece, control the gates, who are in peace and crisis, I repeat, they are open. You cannot stop anybody from passing. You follow tracks with your static features that can also have underwater, they can have hydrophones, underwater cables, etc., etc., etc. And you assign them to moving features when you cannot keep track of them. And then you combine the best of 2 worlds. So I will add, finishing, that a shield is not enough. You need a sword, you need a spear, you need arrows, you need a catapult, you need weapons. Interoperability is key, because you can have a great system, but if it cannot work with the others, you don't have a system. You need to make everybody else build around you, and there are companies who can have fantastic products, and it took them a long time to reach this level of sophistication. Now you cannot tell them to restructure their products. So interoperability by design, standards by design, and we have this richness in the European Union. We have NATO and EU. So if we follow the standards, everything comes together. So reaching the end, I must say we must have Achilles shield, we must have Achilles weapons, but also we must take care of Achilles heel. And what are the elements of Achilles heel? It is the standards, things must work together. It is the redundancy. You cannot have single points of failure. If something is lost, there must be an alternative. You must have options. and you must have the capacity. Maybe you can defend against 10 drones or 10 missiles. If you can defend against 10, be sure they will throw at you 20. It is more expensive. When things are getting more expensive for you, the enemy wins. Where things are getting more expensive for the enemy, the cost of doing operations is higher, which means if you hit the platform and not the weapon, then things are worse for the enemy. Having said that, I close my, I hope, manageable introduction and leave the floor to more specialized guests.
Thank you, Admiral Kavulakos. Mr. Sorg from Deal Defense, which is a company we already know in Greece because we have implemented some of its solutions to our armed forces.
Gentlemen, thank you for this warm welcome, and ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having the opportunity to share with you some thoughts on that, what we are doing here. And having heard this wonderful introduction part will help me, of course, to reduce many of the topics I would have to address as well. So let's do it quite efficient. To help you to put me in the right box, my background, even being today responsible for international sales in that deal group, is I'm a former Air Force officer. I witnessed in person Cold War times, German reunification, all those things that we call in Germany Friedensdividende. I love that word in German, which in fact means you can reduce your costs and you don't need any longer spendings on defense. I was a typical missile person, meaning I dealt with Russian system and Western system, and based on that background, I joined the company. Why this part of my introductory speech? The first encounter I had with Greece, and I joined 1995 with the deal group, was for the IRIS-T program. What was the problem? And that is something you have today, and we have it in Germany, Baltic states have it. We had a situation when suddenly it became obvious that you had to change your existing systems. And it was not a funny time because all the operators, whether it was in the States or was in Europe, faced the same thing. So we had to sit together. And one particular topic, as you mentioned, was of key at that time. They said, you, the customer side, the operators, the armed forces said, hey, interoperability is key. Performance is key. You had to prove that you don't end up with black boxes, that you have the know-how in the countries where we live, where we have our families. It should be affordable. We should share the cost. We should find means that not some of the countries had to invest like hell, while at the same time others do the same. Having said all that, we were in fact invited by the governments, at that time also by the Greek government, build a European team that would enable Europe to be top of the list when it comes to air defense. And it's fair to share with you that in the early days, we were not sure whether we could meet that particular request when it comes to in-service time of 40 years. You all in that audience know quite well that in this particular business, you have to come up with a system, whatever it is, whether it's a vehicle, submarine, a missile, that hopefully provides growth potential, that has already the features and enables the users, the countries, to keep it up to performance. So it does not work just to say, I have something, we'll sell it, and these kind of things. And I have to say now, looking back, that at that time, the decision makers were quite brilliant, because they said, you will involve, and let's talk about Greece, the Greek companies make use of the capabilities we have. You are even forced as prime contractor at that time to allocate the respective money here in Greece. So they said, in case we had to work on the technology, in case they had to improve their technology level, we will do that. But it's a must-have to have them involved. Same applied to Sweden, Italy, Spain. You may know that in detail. At the end of the day, I have to say this was a great success story. Greece and the Hellenic Armed Forces are using the outcome of that development, the six-nation European MOU, still today. And it's the backbone in many nations for aircraft-based air defense. And yes, without any doubt, we are proud that we achieved that. But it's fair to share with you, without the contribution of your local industry, we would have no program. And one hard lesson we had to accept as a company during that program was, even when you may have the best technology, the best product, it will be something where your customer, your armed forces, and they are the important part, will at the end of the day tell you, dear Mr. Sorg, it's nice that you ask us to buy 5,000 missiles, but we cannot afford this. We are living in a peace society. We have other obligations as well. So when we plan to purchase these kind of things, we have to consider that hopefully our neighboring countries will have the same system. If we have a conflict, we would love to have interoperability. We would love to have the capability to do joint training, having a same logistics. When you companies come up with upgrade ideas, having new technologies, fine, we're open to discuss, but show to us that we can still use the system, that it's done in Europe, that we are not depending on other sources. I have to tell you, the company didn't always like that. Because of course, like all companies in this world, in that business, would love if a customer said, I go just for you. I will buy on your side and you will be my preferred supplier. No, it doesn't work like that. Now let's look at that, what happened in 2022 in Ukraine. In Germany, and it's sad to admit, in Germany we had until that point in time, and as a German citizen, I may confirm and let's say put some emphasis on this statement, confirm this view. We were truly convinced that we don't need that much defense stuff anymore. You were facing a situation where they said, hey, we have so many other topics where we should take care of. And suddenly, overnight, things changed. And then the armed forces, as you all know in this audience, of course, went into their internal discussion facing that they say, wait. Yes, we had to compensate for some reductions we made in the past, but we are not in the position, even Germany, to do it alone. So it had to be a joint approach and making use of capabilities in Europe. And let me share with you, being very active, having been active in Europe for decades, yes, we have many capable companies in Europe. You have them here in your country as well. And they are eager to cooperate, and we invited them. Now, coming to ground-based air defense and what you said with respect to Achilles shield. Yes, as a former officer, I clearly confirm it has to be a solution where there is not one size fits all. It has to be something smart where the decision maker may come up with decisions the individual industry may not like. They may not choose your system in all areas. And what we hope to see, as you indicated rightly, is that at the end of the day, a decision here in Greece would hopefully cover exactly like you mentioned it, the flexibility to act depending on that what's required. What do we need land forces wise, Navy wise, what's required for air defense, what kind of layers, when we have new threats. I give an example. When we try to promote the ground-based air defense system, IRIS-T, SLM in Germany at the day when we were finished our work, the official statement was, we like the system, but there is no urgent necessity to purchase it. When Ukraine happened, the chancellor, as you may know, in his famous speech, was offering as a donation this system to Ukraine. For us, this was something, allow me to say, like very moving, because we said, wait, we were not expecting to be that close in this kind of conflict, but of course it's the purpose of that system. And the system was transferred to Ukraine, and during security conference at Munich, we got officially, and that was very moving, the statement, you deal a relatively small company. We are, yes, a big group, but when you look in a worldwide environment, we're not a big player, but we're good in that. They said, you save Kiev. And you can imagine this was a goosebump moment where you sit there and say, okay, we have to do that. So what happened? They used that system, and the situation in Ukraine was, like you all know in that team, horrible. And we didn't expect that the Ukrainian armed forces shared all the feedbacks, the lessons learned that some of the Europeans, and I think it's fair to admit, probably also the Germans, have forgotten. Maybe not technically, but they were no longer on the priority list. So they had to learn the hard way. Hey, we had to do something. We had to find sources that could help us to cope with the drones, with the cruise missiles. And to stay with Greece, in each and every IRIS-T SLM system in service in Ukraine, and we are in production and deliver them, you have your Greek companies. They have their components in that, even while Greece have not even committed to be part of that. And we have achieved, that was something very important for us, we achieved, based on the information from Ukraine, a close to 100% success rate. If you talk to a military person, 100% success rate is never accepted. You have failures, but they said this system has turned out to be the key element to protect Russian, to protect Ukrainian critical infrastructures, people, cities, the nuclear power plant. And we use in that system your components, your subsystems, and the same from Sweden. And yes, these companies are proud. Why I'm emphasizing this? At the same time, suddenly all the countries around, when you think of the Baltics, when you think of East German countries, East European countries, they approach us and said, okay, we would like to have this system as well. Nice for the company, but you all know that we said, okay, if we had to ramp up production, all the others have to do as well. And they said, no problem. As we have interoperability, as all the others would have most like the same system, we could even consider to take one of your system, country X, I don't know, maybe a Slovenian system, and locate it to the Baltics. And Estonia and Lithuania have ordered this system. And guess what they do? They use exactly, as you said, this system. They use the same radar. They say, we are not here to have 5 systems in operation. We have to have the same system. They may even discuss where to do the training jointly. And for us, it was a surprise, if I may be candid with you, it was a surprise to which extent they insisted to say, ladies and gentlemen, we in the armed forces and you industry have to provide it. We want you to have it interoperable. We want it to be in your hands in Europe, that you can modify it, that when we come up with new requirements, that we can implement it. And we had to, frankly speaking, do that in a speedy way. We had to change our processes. Now coming to Greece as well when it comes to Achilles shield. We are here, and all those on the fair, of course, are invited to see that at the booth. We have the subject matter expert with us here, have showed that system as well. But it was not just an industry approach. You are aware that the German government established the European Sky Shield Initiative. And the idea of that initiative, and this is very rare and seldom situation in Germany, that they are stepping in front of that. They said, we have now the feedback from combat, and we have seen a necessity, and they invited, including Greece, officially to have them to be a member. And we are proud to say that the Greek government said, yes, we are as well an ESSI member. So from an industry point of view, we witness that and follow this process. So I hope that in this consideration for Achilles shield, knowing that several layers had to be covered, for instance, this system as well will be considered. Knowing in particular, the operators know it already. It's the same technology, similar technology, like you have it in your own aircraft. It's the same industry that is involved, even more companies right now in discussion with us to be involved. It's the same exchange on operational level with the neighbors in Europe. So it appears to us, and that was the feedback we also got from the government, like a win-win. And so I encourage you to continue, like you said, in a process to evaluate the system, which fits, which provides to the Hellenic Armed Forces the best fit. And you have next to me representatives from Hensoldt. To give an example, Hensoldt was one of the radars provider we have. There were countries they wanted to have another radar. So it's up to the customer. We have with him here a gentleman dealing with rolling airframe missile, and he will just introduce himself. So you will find that you have in Europe, not just with our company, lots of capabilities, and I would like to encourage all decision makers to take the time to evaluate this and come up with a solution. Thanks for the time on this.
Ευχαριστούμε τον κύριο Γιώργ. We thank Mr. Jorg Sorg. Next in line is Mr. Gerardo Gomez Naval from Hensoldt. Ο κύριος Gerardo Gomez Naval από την Hensoldt επίσης είναι μια εταιρεία η οποία έχει ιδιαίτερη παρουσία στα ευρωπαϊκά αμυντικά συστήματα και διαχειρίζεται τώρα τελευταία και κάποια πολύ μεγάλα έργα, όπως παραδείγματος χάρη το νέο ραντάρ του Eurofighter. Είναι μια από τις εταιρείες που και αυτή έχει άποψη κυρίως στο κομμάτι των αισθητήρων, όχι μόνο των όπλων, αλλά των αισθητήρων του όλου συγκροτήματος. So, Mr. Gomez.
Thank you, everybody, for being present here, and thanks for the introduction. I think it's a really exciting topic, and here we are with a quite relevant audience and participation of the European industry, which is very important nowadays, considering the latest policies that finally and sadly, because of the situation in Ukraine, made us react and realize that we need to reunify around ourselves and work together. Situation or the heritage from Hensel is coming along from more than 30 years as an aggregation of sensor houses throughout Europe. And we were since the beginning very much focused on the radar detection capabilities, but we expand in several other topics, several other technologies that gave us the opportunity to reinforce and to provide this important interoperability that we are seeking in nowadays world, where the climate is very changing and the reality of the threats is changing towards a very asymmetric battle, where we don't see the regular standard threats that we used to have in the past. So the great sign of reaction was seen during the collaboration with the German companies in order to build up the European solution that was promoted recently and that has achieved a really high success rate. Thanks to Deal and thanks to Airbus as well, that we joined forces together in order to build a really credible solution for the medium range and promote, thanks to the German government, this Sky Shield initiative that is rather successful nowadays, with already 24 countries joining this agreement and sharing information. Without any particular compromise to really buy or join beyond that, but brings the opportunity to share experience among the Europeans, which at the end, it was ultimately the interest of the whole European Union. Hensel is also present not only with the fantastic solution from the Iris TSLM, but also from the Rheinmetall Sky Rangers 30, where the radar is also provided by Airbus, providing a high accuracy and detection ranges, which at the end shares experience and interoperability once again, and provided that for the TRML-4D, which is the primary radar for the Iris TSLM, it's been not only used for the battery detection, but also requested by Ukraine. By Ukraine for additional capabilities, enhance this usage for other means that only the air defense protection. So overall, this reunification around Europe and particularly investing among ourselves into the local industry is certainly important in order to unify forces, because as it was already said, I mean, we cannot rely on protect ourselves only, but rely on others to do it. Coming to the Achilles shield, it's a rather complex solution, multi-layer, and certainly I have the same opinion that the glue to all the different layers and the flexibility to have an open system architecture, which could provide sufficient access to information at the different peers of this layer or shield, is important to really provide adaptability to the threat, because it's continuously changing from air to ground. And Hensel is very committed to really support these kind of ideas with the different technologies that we have beyond just the air defense, which is very important, but also on the electronic warfare with long-lasting technology that we've been developing over time. So without further ado, I think it was kind of in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We move now to Mr. Alexander Mumert from Ramses. Ramses is known in Greece for the launcher of the rolling airframe missile. We already use that in our armed forces, especially in our missile boats, the Russen class. That's 7 boats. And it's going to be used on the new FDI frigates our country has ordered from Naval Group in France. So it's a system we have already experienced, and we're going to keep as a country investing on it. So it's another layer of defense. It's more specialized, but the whole concept is how we can, in Achilles shield, combine all layers of defense from the smallest range to the greater range, and of course all sensors helping and assisting and guiding all this weaponry. So, Mr. Mumert.
Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for the chance to be here and speak to this panel. And thanks for having us as a company at DEFEA. Greece is a very special customer for us because you have been the first third-party country that we were able to, or that signed on to buy into the RAM family, like we say. So it's more than 20 years, so Greece will always have a special place in our company, in our hearts. A little bit on my background. Before I joined Ramses in 2018, I was almost 18 years serving in the German Navy. At the back end, or at my last seagoing job, I was also air defense officer or operations officer on a German major air defender, FGS Hamburg, which was probably one of the greatest time seas I had. Times changed, so I signed on for the production job at Ramses, and since last year, I'm now at the sales department, and I love being around, being here, and being part of discussions like that. So thank you for the warm welcome here, and thanks for being at DEFEA, being such a nice venue. If you have a look at the slide, for those who are not that aware or that familiar with the RAM system, I want to emphasize 2 key points on that. So number 1, all threats that you are aiming at with the Achilles shield can be covered. Of course, our primary target, and that's what the system is designed for, is missile defense, subsonic, supersonic missile defense. Yes, you can use it against surface targets. Yes, you can use it against UAVs. Of course, no, you cannot use it against submarines in the ASW layer, of course, but nevertheless, quite a huge target set. On the next slide, please, you can see some of the key characteristics that the system provides. I don't want to go through all of those, just my highlights from my point of view. We were talking a lot about technical content up to now and technical things up to now. But there's one thing that we should not forget. At the end of the chain, there's still a human sitting, taking the decision and having to be able to cover the workload that is provided, right? So one of the key features is that it's a fire and forget missile system. So as soon as the launch has been done, the operator is free to focus on the next threat coming in. It also does not need a fire control channel. So all the other sensors that are available in the system will be freed up for the rest of the missiles or the rest of the effectors, or as you earlier mentioned them, to stay in the analogy, all of the spears and effectors that you have around in your Achilles shield. Dependent on the threat that is emerging. The system is able to cover up to 21 targets. We got 21 rounds in one launcher, which from our point of view provides a credible defense for a single unit. So even if they throw 20 at us, we still got one more to go. Okay, one of the key changes in the recent future was, or a key moment for us also as a system was the deployment of FGS Hessen last year to the Red Sea, because in April 2024, they were or they needed to fire ram to protect their ship themselves, and that was our goosebump moment when our CEO went to FGS Hessen after they returned, that the crew went up to him and really said to him that they were glad to have RAM on board because they were sure they can rely on it as, let's say, their mini shield on board and the last line of defense. Okay. So to get it into the bigger picture of Achilles, no, one before, please. If you, to put our system in the Achilles shield and the global view of Achilles shield. Yes, we are a close-in weapon system with a very, or with compared to other systems in the shield, we have not that much of a range, let's say. We're a close-in weapon system, but as we heard earlier, you need to keep your shooters protected. And with a kill probability of about 96%, you can be pretty sure that you can use RAM as the last line of defense and therefore spend all the other effectors, all the other spears you have on board, you can use for the big threats coming in to keep the area behind you, an island, a mission essential unit, a high value unit, or what you have not. You can keep protected with your medium or long range shooters. I would like to add another point that we heard earlier from the Admiral. We do not want to restrict ourselves to the capabilities we have at the moment. And if you have a look at the next slide, you will see we are now 40 years in the business. We are currently looking at the 6th generation of the missile. We are currently in the process of developing the next set of capabilities. The threat analysis groups are how should I say, talking and trying to define, or not trying, but defining the requirements for the 7th generation, which will become available sometimes during the early to mid 2030s, I would say. So what we call spiral development ensures that we will not be only capable today, but we will also enhance, improve our missile to cover the threat that might be coming in 5 years or might be coming in 10 years. And we will make sure that you buy one launcher, but the next generation of missiles will be compatible with that again. So compatibility as well as interoperability, I think, are two key points that we can firmly say that we fulfill those 2 points for your naval systems. And it's a great honor for us that we know with Kimon class coming up, we will be further supporting the Greece Navy, the Greece Armed Forces, and make sure that you can, or that we support keeping your sailors safe. Thank you for the time, and I hand the word back.
Okay, thank you very much. We have some questions because this is a live event. It's streamed online right now, and we have from our readers some participation, some questions asked. But I have one main question for all the representatives from the industry. The Greek Defense Ministry has issued a directive which makes a lot of sense in my mind, that all future procurement of armaments in Greece should contain at least a 25% Greek added value of local participation. So 25% is a large number. My question is the industry ready to provide such a percentage and what kinds of technology transfers this would include, and what kind of investments from Greek companies being able to participate along the industry in managing to reach up to 25% or even more.
If I may start with that, the fortunate part for Deal is that we did this already, that we started, and once again, to be perfectly candid with you, to some extent forced by the government. Yes, we were forced by the government, but it turns out, as I said, to be a brilliant approach. These 25% are, of course, in our consideration, how to integrate other companies. You may have witnessed that we signed here with SECPI an agreement as well, where we are continuing to further enlarge the number of companies making use of, as you have them in Greece as well, like we have them in Germany, hidden champions that we could just make use. What could they do? And important in that is that we really try to make this kind of cooperation with the Greek companies not just dedicated to one program. Why? Also, from an investment point of view in Greece, it should be justified for these companies that they really take their own shares, hopefully get some support from the government to have their local contribution, not just here for one program. And to give you one example in that, as I mentioned, if you think of Intracom or if you think of HDS, whatever they provide right now is also in the ground-based air defense system. We are talking with companies here when it comes to counter-UAS. We are talking about providing support in the supply chain. So even when the individual parts do not contribute to the current program we discussed, we do that. And yes, I'm pretty sure we will end up with 25%.
From the hands-on perspective, the overall policy has been always to collaborate locally to the local industry since the earliest start of the company in 2017 as the carve-out from Airbus. And certainly we continue engaging local industries in order to enhance our networks and enhance our footprint in the countries, because it's the only way to really ensure that there is going to be a continuity within the programs that are initiated. And certainly we are interested in continue engaging local companies to enlarge our footprint in the country. So certainly this 25% is challenging but reachable.
I think from my point of view, there's one more consideration to be added. Yeah? And I don't want to have that being misunderstood. Yeah? Yes, local content is always an upside. Yeah, it's a plus. It enhances capabilities. Yeah? The rolling airframe system contains 3 big industrial players, with Raytheon in the USA, with the Deal Defense in Germany, MBDA Germany as the industrial base. One of the key elements and success elements of the program has always been the diversity. Yeah, we have US thinking people in the program. We have US capabilities and key knowledge systems there, and Germans as well, right? So bringing those together, this made the whole system a success. So I am absolutely sure that bringing the Greece industry and the Greece knowledge, the Greece mentality to it, can just add more to the program, and will it probably make it even more successful.
If you allow me to add one comment with respect to the local setup, I would like to draw your attention, in particular with respect to this question, to the advantages that turned out having, for instance, this ground-based air defense system in several countries. The Estonian, Latvian, or Slovenian, Bulgarian, German, Egyptian, whatever, ground-based air defense system, they are on the investment list of the Greek companies, meaning when several countries in Europe, or not just Europe, use the same system, it was also for the benefit for our individual discussion with the companies. So they could, in their sheets where they had to calculate, does it make sense to go into that business? They had suddenly, by having the same systems in so many countries, a much broader base. And by intention, we left the individual component by these suppliers. The most obvious thing you can see every day is the warhead. In an Egyptian ground-based air defense system, in an Estonian, you have the Greek warhead. And I'm pretty sure the team working in Greece on these components having to decide whether we enter this kind of cooperation, consider exactly this multinational approach, multi-country approach as one of the main assets why they enter this cooperation. Because just to do it for, let's say, 80 components is not justified for them from a financial point of view. So it's really a win-win.
Another question from our viewers now. How Achilles shield, as you described in the Greek defense challenge, how can it benefit from the Rearm Europe initiative, which provides both loans and an extension of spending without being added to the national debt of each country? For the Greek case, that's evaluated that it can be another 3 billion of euros for spending without counting that to our national debt. So for a program and a procurement program for the Greek armed forces, combined, of course, for all needs, of 25 billion euros in the next 12 years, this can go up to 28 billion euros with the Rearm Europe. So how important is for Greece to apply the Rearm Europe initiative to that kind of procurements that the Achilles shield demands?
I'm more than willing to share my personal views on that. The counterparts I met during the years in Greece were quite smart. So I expect them to get in contact simply with the ESSI authorities, with the German government, doing something Greek traders can do in a perfect way. Germans never could do that good. In fact, just say, tell me, what are the advantages? If I join ESSI, if I make use of ESSI as one part of Achilles shield, nobody claims, as you rightly described, that you can solve the challenges in Achilles shield which are there with just one approach. So my humble recommendation would be that the government simply contact the German government, asking them direct questions saying, hey, tell me what are the advantages and how could it be integrated? And to give you one example, the Germans, for instance, use in ESSI initiative IRIS-T SLM, fine for us. But they use as well Patriot. For them, Patriot is very important. They say, as we are Patriot user, we want to have in our layered approach also Patriot. They, and you know this, was decided, they would like to have Arrow 3 on top of that. They have, when you go to the lower and shorter ranges, other systems. So quite a similar situation like here in Greece. So I would expect them to discuss, and there will be, that's my bet, there will be a Greek solution at the end of the day consisting of systems you have, systems you consider to be of help. That's my answer. And the big benefit of that, quite obvious, is, that's why I'm saying they are smart, they are not eager. I have not been in contact with the decision makers here, but they are not eager to spend more money than required. And so I would expect them to try to harmonize this, not to have the necessity to have enormous numbers of missiles, maybe discussing with the government, in my Achilles shield, I need a certain capability for ground-based air defense, medium range, short range. Would you, other countries, mind to jointly consider, if we have a conflict as NATO partners, to do joint work? So that would be my approach and my expectation.
Well, certainly, again, it's also a personal opinion about this. I think this Rearm Europe relief on the debt count is certainly an opportunity to increase the catch-up of the defense capabilities that Greece is suffering for quite a long time. There are so many programs which are in queue to be executed, and certainly it's a fantastic opportunity that Europe is providing to the entire Greek ecosystem to really enhance and catch up with the necessities that the country is having. So I do recommend the defense ecosystem here to really apply for that and join and collaborate more actively in the Sky Shield initiative, which is at the end revolving around the Rearm Europe procedure or concept, which reinforce or tie down the relationship among the different signatories of the group, the working group, and will at the end benefit from, as it was already said, the local industry that is already participating in the supply chain and in the maintenance cycle of the different layers, whether it's Iris TSLM, whether it's Arrow, whether it's any of the potential layers that may fit into the Αχιλλέα shield.
I think the main points have been already addressed by my four speakers. And yes, I think it's time that there's a concerted European approach to this, because otherwise I think we lose out on our own capabilities and lose a great chance to, how should I say, up the game of our European defense capabilities. Thank you.
One more question again from our readers. I would like the opinion of Mr. Kavulakos also. One of the most recent and evolving threats for Greece, but also globally, is the emergence of more and more ballistic missiles, which are becoming much more accurate than we used to expect. I'm talking about small and medium range, not the intercontinental ballistic missiles, which is another game for superpowers. So we are facing this threat in Greece, and we have seen that threat emerging in, unfortunately, the new wars happening all over the world, in Ukraine, the conflict in the Red Sea, just yesterday between India and Pakistan, again, unfortunately, but it shows that there is a new threat, at least for smaller, medium-sized countries like Greece. The question, therefore, is how difficult is to track, identify, and intercept this kind of weaponry that is available to a lot of players right now?
I will say that, sorry, let me arrange my mic. Ballistic missile defense is not new. The NATO has it for quite a long time. Now I am advocating for the Navy. The number one way you have to do it is ships. NATO was doing that. And there are also in various countries, there are static positions, well protected, that deal only with BMD. So how difficult? As the missiles are evolving, they will be more difficult, but also is the answer. If you keep the weapon that hits the missile seriously cheaper than the missile, let the opponent throw whatever he wants. But BMD needs another amount of energy because you must look also very high. It's not just a transiting, or you must look from high low if it is a scheme, a cruise. So there are solutions, we know them. It was not, and the threat is there for quite a long time. So there are solutions. For a country like Greece, if we speak about Achilles shield, I will say ships, static features with an array of weapons, and of course very powerful sensors, because it's another type of sensor that detects a UAV, and another type of sensor that detects a ballistic missile coming either, because it's not only the speed, it is also from where it is coming. If it is coming directly over you, or it is coming like what we know, a plane that flies in a high speed. So the threat has evolved. There are many, I think, options for an attacker. But now that it came to the eyes of the industry and nations, I think always if you keep the defense less expensive significantly, you will always be winning. But you must invest on the sensors and where you will have them. My personal opinion is a combination of airborne early warning, ships, fixtures on the land, and of course, the right weapons. So it is possible. It has been done. It's not new. So there are solutions. Of course, the threat is evolving, but we are evolving. And I think particularly Europe and in the past we had Euro-Atlantic. I hope at some point we will have it again. Not at the moment, it seems. But Europe has originated science, technicians, installations, has come to terms with its past. So we know what were our mistakes in the past and we will not repeat them. And we are much more able to come together and create solutions than we ever were before in our life. And we have a reason to do it now. So I am, even though I try not to use the words optimistic or pessimistic, because in a way there is hubris in that, because you foretell the future and you shouldn't. But I think we have everything we need to be on top of developments, and there's nothing we should be scared of. The only thing is we must have the will, political and citizens' will, to come together and put our minds together. So that's it. I hope I covered the question of the viewers.
Yeah, I'm keeping that the defense must be cheaper than the attack, which is always a challenge.
Let me just briefly comment on a few things. Most has been addressed, and absolutely with you. Maybe as a company that does not produce ballistic missile defense, no, we don't. But being very capable when it comes to pinpoint accuracy, I think ballistic missile defense in Europe is in particular an area where this joint approach, doing things together, having hopefully across borders, same system and sensors so that you could really cover the area in which you are, where you live, where you have your people, is of key. And I truly believe that even when the current situation does not reflect this and is not that inviting, that this transatlantic cooperation will stay alive when it comes to this, it goes without saying that the individual countries in Germany, with some exceptions, would have their challenges to provide such technology. So my humble recommendation and view on that is that is a core argument to have across borders in Europe, when it comes to BMD, a joint approach. Maybe there is allow me this example, there is a sensor for this in the Baltics for a case in Germany, so that those are netted, that they communicate, and it goes without saying, without having this kind of harmonization, BMD would be really, really challenging. Ignoring all the challenging tasks the industry has to solve to really get these horrible threats killed and down.
Certainly, from the radar perspective, it's key to win as much time as possible. So the early warning is certainly the key aspect in here, added to accuracy to engage and defeat the threat. So that is why the level of technology that requires ballistic missile detection and defeat is really composed of different layers. So we are not relying on only one sensor, but rather on a combination of sensors. And particularly, it has to be a joint effort in between the different countries that are subject to be attacked. And again, the Αχιλλέα shield could be of a layer of a greater system in this rearm Europe unified protection under schemes like European Sky Shield Initiative or similar towards the ballistic protection of the European soil.
Okay, RAMS has been, or the RAM system being a close-in weapon system, ballistic missiles are probably not our biggest expertise, but let me talk on the experiences I made as a naval officer. I can just stress I cannot stress enough actually what the Admiral just said, because if you take a proper ship, you will have a sensor combined with an effector. It will have a command and control system built in with the crew. It will ensure interoperability with the rest of the system, and depending on where you place your ship, where you station it, you can even provide a fair share of early warning to your armed forces.
Okay, one last question from us before we close this down. There is a new word in global defense, and it's called a new, not just word, a new idea, which is the cheap saturation of defenses that can happen by using unmanned systems. So we knew about the concept of saturation, but now it has become much cheaper to do that. And the question is, something like as complex as Achilles shield, how far can withstand a massive saturation attack from UAVs of all kinds, or a more complex attack including UAVs, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, whatever, and all of them covering one and the other with a lot of, some of them just decoys, some of them being jammers, some of them carrying an explosive load, or just to distract your systems. So is it possible to portray and create something like Achilles shield with all its coverage when you face the modern saturation?
Thank you for the question, because it's by all means one of the most critical things currently in discussion, how to cope with that. I may share with you an experience we learned in Ukraine. As you can imagine, when you have a ground-based air defense system in place and you have, if I may call it, a precious toy, you simply cannot use it against swarms of super cheap, relatively cheap targets saturating your system. Not performance-wise, you could easily kill them, but you would simply waste your missiles, and you should keep them for the real killer, and like cruise missiles or even faster stuff. So the answer is quite simple, if I may say. You have to tailor, and I'm pretty sure that will be the same in Greece, you have to tailor this to this kind of threat, meaning you may need something that is a combination of several things. To give an idea, we have as a company something that helps us to take care of autonomous flying drones that do not react at all on all jamming things with our high PM, high power electromagnetic. Deficit, to be perfectly candid, deficit. Right now we are facing about 500, sometimes 800 meters, end of the game. So yes, this is a perfect system. Yes, we have contracts. Yes, they use this for their self-defense of the ground-based air defense system, but they need something on top. They have kinetic energies. They have, in fact, guns. They have systems with small drones. They look, in fact, like a remote control plane, something very cheap. And it's fair to share with you that industry, when I at least talk about our own area, had to change and had to find partners that by their design, by their structure, are much more capable to take care of such a production task. If we follow, if I may give an example, if we would apply the same processes, and I'm pretty sure it's the same for other big players in the game, on these mass production of these kind of counter-drone activities, we would fail. So one of the things we did, we tried to find capable partners, and we did. I have here in the audience the gentleman that could show it to you 100 meters back from here, to have exactly the flexibility to cope with these enormous threats. And to give you a figure, we were facing in the early days of a production rate of Shahed from 120 per day, where we said 120 per day. We said that will not work. So we said nobody can take care of that. So we have to come up, all of us have to come up, and you in Achilles shield, with cheap counter drones that are easy in their access, and when they have limitation in range, so what? we have to cover with something else, maybe different ranges. And this way of thinking, being flexible, changing the approach, changing the equipment when new technology approach, that's of key. Don't believe, if I may say this way, you can buy something now that will solve it to 5 kilometers and then you're done for the next 10 years. No. So flexibility, having various solutions is, from my point of view, key.
Certainly, we are revolving around the same thing, that these layers are multiple, and it's not based on the one or two, but rather several. And particularly the protection of these high valuable toys is of an essence, because this asymmetric threat that we are seeing lately is bringing additional challenges on the way of protecting not only the critical infrastructures and the soil, but also the defense mechanisms that are established and composed. So agree, flexibility on the way that these type of systems are going to defend other systems is key and paramount to really build a solid and growable shield that will evolve over time. And the interoperability of those systems is also paramount to really be able to cope with the evolution, because we are seeing today drones of 500 euros defeating critical radar stations, and then when you are blind, you are hit by the hard kill. So certainly, it's the task of the industry, together with the end users and the operators, to really define and collaborate together, sharing experience, costs, and targets to really evolve and develop the adequate solution for the European environment.
What I would like to say is that yes, there are cheap drones of 1,500 euros. They attach an RPG head on them and they hit, and they have a distance. They have a range between 1 and 10 kilometers at a moment. Yes, they are lethal. Why they are lethal? Because they are small, so they can. But to hit something like that, you don't need something bigger than a pen in size. So we had in the past, we still have them artillery munitions that have that. So they spread in a radius of about 100 meters from my past experience. So the key question is, how do you detect? This is the key question. How do I know that there is the little drone coming? So there are sensors who can do that. We were not ready for this war, but now we are. But it is the RCS, the radar cross-section is not impossible. You can detect it early enough, and you can have even cheaper drones like that who will go and hit it. I also would like to say that we tend to believe that this Achilles shield will be something that we will switch it on, and the rest of us, or any dome in Europe, the rest of us will continue with our lives, we'll go to work, shop. No. When you are in war, you are mobilizing. So there will be soldiers that they have these small UAVs who are against UAVs on their back. There will be, as I saw one brilliant, I think, solution in a little moped. There was a soldier, he had something like a pizza delivery guy in the back, but this pizza delivery box is opening and there is a small UAV coming out. And he will be connected from a control center where they will say release and they will go. So I deny to accept that there is something that we cannot defend ourselves against. This does not exist. There is always an answer. But most important is that we have the mindset for that. We must be ready to be mobilized, because there is not be somebody else. As you said, you must depend on others for your defense. The problem of Estonia is Greece's problem. The problem of Greece is Germany's problem. The problem of Spain is Greece's problem as well. The problem of Italy, the problem of even UK, even they are not in the EU, but they are still in Europe. The problem of Ukraine, I may add, is our problem. So when we think like that and be ready to mobilize and come out of our comfort zone, as they say in exercising, to be fit, you must come out of your comfort zone. There are answers. I must say that most of the breakthrough, I will repeat, breakthrough technologies originated from Europe. There were other countries who took them, who made them better. But there were key European scientists who thought of things and other countries made it. So we were not ready 5 years ago. I think that now we are ready. And perhaps peace and justice will prevail, and all of us, enemies and friends, will have a common European future. But this will not come yet. Number one, I must say, we must be mentally ready to mobilize and then put our heads to solutions, because a pre-fragmented artillery cell costs something like 3,000 euros. A swarm of UAVs, 20 of 1,500 euros, is something like 30,000 euros. So with 3,000 euros, you kill 30 in a radius of 100 meters. So it is cheap. Question, you should be looking for the threat. You must prepare now your tools, as when they are saturating your defense with a ballistic missile, you see from where it's launched. We can do that. So you hit it and take the problem to the other side. Okay, maybe I sound too military now or too naval, but we're talking about war and Achilles shield and all of these things. So I wish it would be more poetic and peaceful times, but I don't know. So thank you. Please.
Okay, so again, we talked a lot about effector sensors and the techniques around it. But I think there's one serious fact that we all need to keep in the back of our heads. No plan survives the first encounter with the enemy. There will be occasions, there will be environments, there will be situations where you just cannot counter 100% of the threat. And also, and although we talk about Achilles shield, it's 100% security is impossible. Yeah, and that is something that I miss in the discussion, that I especially miss also in the German society. Everybody is thinking we can keep everybody safe. We are not going to lose something. This is not going to happen. Yeah, that's one thing that we need to get into our heads. But as I learned with the UK when I was there, never end them on a low. What the Admiral said earlier, I think now, at least the political and society mindset is still in sort of a peacetime, maybe crisis time. Yeah, we are probably, with the military background, all of us work in the military industry, we are probably a step or maybe two ahead of that. But there will come a point when the mindset changes and has to change very drastically. And I'd like to take the example of the COVID crisis, when complex political systems were able to find pragmatic solutions in a very quick way. So as long as the momentum is there and the motivation is there, I'm pretty sure we can also adapt to that and have a as safe as possible future for every one of us in Europe. Thanks.
Okay, I would like to add this up and close this forum. First of all, thank you everyone that was here, and thanks to our online viewers. You can find this forum online on YouTube on fly.com.gr channel, and it's going to be there for a long time. So for anyone who wants to look it up, I would like to point out from my point of view that Achilles shield is very ambitious, and it should be ambitious because the threats are evolving and in a much faster pace than we were expecting. Unfortunately, the recent wars have shown how fast the threat can evolve, and of course, how fast the counter threat can evolve. It's a learning process, unfortunately, extremely bloody. So it's very ambitious, it's groundbreaking, it needs a lot of investment, a lot of money, and this money and these funds have to be invested year after year. It's not something you buy once and you just support it. You have to constantly upgrade, enhance, add, expand, maturing it, solving all the problems that will come about, and there will be problems in the implementation of those system of systems. Also, it will need a strong participation of the Greek defense industry. We need that. It's not a directive, it's a need for countries like Greece that they have to involve in production and design and of know-how in the defense sector. It also needs a general change of mind, both to the military dogmas, but also to the common people's understanding of what exactly defense is, what defense procurement is, what defense design is, and what the threat is. You cannot create something that is so expensive, it's going to be very expensive, and so expanded without the population, the society of Greece, or any country in Europe supports it. So the whole aspect of, the classic boring after a while argument, boring because it's repeated, not because it's an insignificant argument, it's very significant. The whole argument, how we're going to spend the public funds towards defense or social support measures. Both are needed, both are important, one supports the other. That's why this is an endless discussion. You need both. So you have to have the public support to systems like that. You have to have the industry support. You have to have the European support, since we're talking about the European defense as a concept. And permit me, because we are in Greece, the final mythological reference. We love mythology in Greece. Achilles' shield is described in Homer's Iliad. So Achilles uses the shield in the final battle with Hector. He kills Hector, and to the dismay of the city of Troy, which is besieged. Unfortunately, in Iliad, later Achilles dies. Troy finally is taken by the Greeks, but with a lot of blood, a lot of years spent, and a lot of grief. So finally, the victory is very bitter for everyone. We hope that Achilles' shield to be created in Greece, never used, but if it's used, we hope it will not break and Achilles will survive. Thank you.
So much.